Alright, let's see if this works.
Oh, Sailor Moon. Anyone remember Sailor Moon? I remember Sailor Moon. Remember when she fought against Queen Beryl? I remember that. Oh, remember Goku? I remember Goku. And the Cell Saga when Goku helped Gohan defeat Cell? Yeah, I remember that. Oh, remember Cowboy Bebop? I remember Cowboy Bebop. Oh, the awesome opening credits and I'm jumping on shrooms. I remember that. And Spike ending it with a bang. Oh, I remember that. Remember Goku?
I could have easily brought up some other titles like Naruto, Fairy Tail, hell, even Sword Art Online. But the point of the matter is how I can easily remember shows I watched when I was a kid, rather than barely remembering a show that I watched from my tech school days. Does anyone remember Vampire Knight? Vampire Knight, the story of a young girl named Yuki Cross, whose first memory as a child was that of a vampire named Kaname Kuran, rescuing her from a monstrous vampire. Ever since that day, she has devoted her life towards making Kaname and her father's vision come true, which is to create a world where vampires and humans can coexist. This won't be an easy task to do, however, as she has to deal with stubborn vampires who want to drink the blood of other humans, vampire hunters who really don't trust vampires at all, and she's partnered with a scorned hunter in training, Zero Kiryu, a young man who watched his family get killed by a vampire. Can this goal come true? Can vampires and humans get along? Why is everyone so damn hot? Look how pretty everyone is. Look at him. They're so hot. So for this review, I'm going to briefly speak about the show while avoiding spoilers, but in order to fully express my true disappointment towards this show, there will be a spoiler territory. May I remind you, this spoiler-free part will not be easy. For the most part, Vampire Knight has some intriguing plot points that did drag us in. However, it seems like in order to get from plot point A to plot point B, the story drags. But only towards the end, to be fair. The first part of Vampire Knight was intriguing with Zero's character and Kaname's mysterious connection to Yuki, but the further the story went on, the less interesting it became, especially when the story carries on after Vampire Knight Guilty. Case in point, the story became so forgettable that I had to rely on Vampire Knight Wiki in order to remember what went down in the end. In all honesty, however, I believe the majority of the fans did the same thing I did. Read the first few chapters after Guilty, forget about the chapters ever uploading later on, and then come back months later just to find out how it all ends. This is because the story that would connect us to the major plot points, twists, and climaxes were phenomenally boring. The plot points were stretched out, the side characters were dull, and the series only made two of the characters slightly interesting, and they were our male leads, Kaname and Zero. In order to fully go over what made them interesting, I'd have to wait till spoiler territory. So is this another anime with a boring female lead? Well, she did place her in our top 10 most annoying characters in anime list, so she's not that boring. In a bad way. The story tries to make her a strong young woman who will do what she can to maintain peace between humans and vampires, even if it costs her a social life with her fellow classmates. Let's just say, hot vampires plus Killjoy Yuki equals bitches be crazy. She starts off as a semi-good character, but is mostly there to draw out the interesting parts of Kaname and Zero. So she's basically a typical harem Lego piece with somewhat of a personality. By that I mean she had some interesting traits to give her some identity, but once a major transition in Vampire Knight Guilty occurs, any intriguing characteristics she had is drained out of her. No pun intended. Overall, Vampire Knight is a boring drama with a plot that gets even more forgettable the further it goes, and it only has 2 interesting characters. Now before we get to spoiler territory, let's give the non-spoiler people some more things to talk about. First off, the animation. Vampire Knight and Guilty were both animated by Studio Dean. For the most part, Studio Dean does simple projects that don't require too much effort compared to studios like A1 and KyoAni. They still do some good work such as Hellgirl, Sankore, and Basta! For Vampire Knight's animation, it has its flaws here and there. But what else can you do for a project that requires little to no action? Vampire Knight is dialogue heavy and features really pretty characters with big eyes. As long as they transition the art style from the original manga, then everything should be fine. However, if there's one thing I can't stand about this animation is the characters' hair. Some hairstyles aren't that bad, but there are some styles that look like the characters never shower. So many clumps and buildup. Wash your hair, people! Especially you, Juri. Look at this. Her hair was great in the manga, but it looks like she's shedding and losing more hair in every scene she's in. Get some Rogaine, girl. Voice acting wise, it's mediocre. There are some good and some bad performances, so it's an overall mediocre performance. The best ones in my opinion are Bryce Papenbrook as Hanabuso Aido.
Good morning, girls! I could hear you loud and clear from the dorm. You're all looking quite cute today.
And Travis Willingham as Tuga Yagari.
Because they are pitiful beings who live only by instinct. And it is for that simple reason why we hunt them.
It seems like some of the minor characters had some decent dubbing, but somehow the main trio had a bit of trouble. Either the voice didn't fit, but the acting was good, the voice did fit, but the acting was bland, or both the voice and the acting did not come out well, which results in the character being the worst dubbed character in the show. So, which one do you think I picked as the worst of the worst? Yuki, Zero, or Kaname? Pick your answers now, and I'll just wait a bit. Okay, that should be enough time. The one character I think sounded weird but acted well was Vic Mignogna as Zero Kiryu. Rumors had spread that there was a Vic Mignogna Mamoru Miyano curse where any character voiced by Mamoru would have to be voiced by Vic. That's not true, as proven in a lot of his projects, but it seemed to be the case for some of Mamoru's most popular characters, including Tamaki Suo, Ren Matsuoka, and Zero Kiryu. Once I heard Vic was voicing Zero, I shook my head in disappointment, since, well, I know Vic can act the part, but he can't sound like the part. I could hear him as Tamaki Suo and Ren Matsuoka, but I personally thought his voice didn't match Zero. Sure, he did a good job acting out Zero's pain and suffering, but I just couldn't help but hear Vic Mignogna trying to sound like something he's not. You're a great actor, Vic, but I don't hear enough range from you.
Listen, it's really none of my business whether you like that guy or not. But you do know, right?
Now as for the character who sounded the part, but did a somewhat dull performance, was Kaname Kuran, voiced by Ezra Wise? Was that his name? I don't remember that being his name. Oh, he was known as Ethan Murray, but changed it to Ezra Wise. I'm just going to guess that Ethan Murray was just his stage name, but then decided to go back to Ezra Wise. So for this review, I'll just refer to him as Ezra. My favorite role he ever did was Gene Starwin and Fred Lau from Outlaw Star. He's a good actor who still acts in a few projects here and there, such as Aldo Noah Zero, Miss Hakusai, and even Miraculous Ladybug. But for this role, it's definitely his weakest performance. His voice sounds like Kaname, refined and gentle, but stern when he has to be. But there were some poorly delivered lines that made him sound like he could care less about his performance.
Thank you for all your help. When you act reserved like this, I feel a bit lonely. Don't worry about that anymore. That was so long ago.
Could somebody give him some Coffee, wake up, Ezra! I just found it amusing how polar opposite Vic and Ezra took their performances. And to those who guessed it right, congratulations! The character I believe had the worst performance in Vampire Knight was Mila Lee as Yuki Cross. Now don't get me wrong, I love Mila Lee's voice, but she doesn't have that much range. I loved her in Durarara, Rosa Maiden, and Blaze Blue, but by far out of all the characters she's ever voiced, Yuki Cross has to be her worst. Not only does her voice not fit the part, but her acting was extremely awkward.
Well, it seems to me the night class is actually doing a pretty good job of getting along with the day class, and I really don't mind having to help out.
She sounds like she's struggling to read her lines. And we've pointed this out in the past, but how does she say Kaname?
I'm fine. Kaname. Kaname. How did you... Kaname.
How is it she's the only one in the show to mispronounce his name?
Your class has begun, Kaname.
Lord Kaname.
Kaname.
It's like I'm witnessing an anime skit from Family Guy.
Kaname. Why do you say his name like that? What's wrong with Kaname? I'm just saying Kaname. Say May. Now say Kaname. Really?
If Mila was assigned to any other character, like Sayori or Rima, I don't think she would have been that bad, since her voice can be complimentary towards these two girls. Let me take some clips from Blaze Blue and pair them up with Rima. You know, vampire lines with a vampire character, you get it.
Your self-control is laudable. Brute that you are, I feared you might have fallen prey to that arm of yours. Imagine my surprise.
That is a million times better. Her voice for Yuki, however, is just a giant miscast. I would have given this role to Chiramile, Christine Cabanos, or Stephanie Sheh. Incredible actresses with great range for their characters, and each of them would have done a great job for Yuki. Mila, I love you, but this had to be your worst performance I've ever heard from you. But that's just my opinion.
There are so many things I want to say.
Okay, let me just wrap up this non-spoiler area with...
I remember something from Vampire Knight.
Oh yeah? What's that?
The shipping war. Oh yeah, I remember shipping war. Kaname versus Zero.
Oh, yes. The one thing that drew a lot of fans in and was basically the chain that dragged the plot along was the shipping war. Every plot twist, every climax, and every important plot point was all leading towards the ultimate question: who Yuki Cross was going to choose. If you remember the old days of Anime America where we foolishly got sucked into this mess, I was on Team Kiryu and Anastasia was on Team Kuran. I wouldn't change a thing, but man was I let down by the manga's ending. Unlike some ship war shows, where the story still gave us something worthwhile that kept us reading, Vampire Knight suffered greatly through its boring story that felt like it was never going to end, but we kept coming back just to see who the hell Yuki was going to end up with. If that is the only thing Vampire Knight had going for it, then you know you have a weak product. From the acting, to the characters, to the methods they use to get you from point A to point B, Vampire Knight is an overall weak anime that a lot of us fell for. Now to those who carried on with the story to see how it all ended, let's continue into spoiler territory. Jump to this time frame in order to avoid spoilers. Vampire Knight, as I stated, knows how to bring in the drama as the major plot points drew us all in. This all started in Season 1 when we discovered Zero Kiryu slowly and painfully transforming into a vampire due to a tragic circumstance that ended up killing his parents. The show then explains the different tiers of vampire classes, the highest being purebloods like Kaname, and the lowest being level E's that are basically soulless monsters who just want to drink blood from any human they see. That is the form Zero is destined to become, so we keep reading hoping somehow Yuki can save his life. Oh yeah, Zero has a twin brother named Ichiru. Drama! This is part of what made Zero interesting. As Yuki was the hopeful one who tried to maintain peace between humans and vampires, Zero was the skeptic who hated all vampires. He was raised to hunt them down, watched the pureblood devour his family thanks to his brother's betrayal, and was turning into the very monster he never wanted to be. That was painful. We sympathized with him and wanted a better outcome for this poor soul. At the same time, we wondered why Kaname was so kind to Yuki compared to how he treated his colleagues. That and why the hell did he just kill that pure blood that turned 0? What was he planning? Even then, we had bigger questions after the major plot twist of Vampire Knight Guilty, which concerns Yuki. It turns out, Yuki Cross is actually a pure-blood vampire in disguise, thanks to her mother's sacrifice. I think after Twilight, we just gave up questioning vampire logic. There's apparently a giant political abuse between purebloods and aristocratic vampires who only want to use purebloods to strengthen their power and control over the system they created. That and Yuki's uncle wanted more power for himself and a strong bride, since how dare his sister snub him, so he was after Yuki to be his bride. Keep in mind, vampire purebloods are mostly in incestuous relationships. It still grosses people out, but I digress. In order to protect Yuki's future, her father died in battle and her mother gave up her life to turn Yuki human. As Uncle Rito came back into the picture, however, Kaname had no choice but to awaken Yuki and protect her from Rito. At first, we're led to believe that Kaname is Yuki's brother, but once we discover why he can't kill Rito himself and why he can't kill Zero, a lot of questions are finally answered. Kaname Kuran is actually the Kuran family's progenitor, as in the first vampire to start the Kuran bloodline. Basically, Yuki's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. He couldn't kill Rito since he used Yuki's real brother to awaken the progenitor, which is why he needed Zero to take care of the job. Ever since then, he has been fighting against the system so he won't be some mere puppet as Rito wanted him to be. In order to maintain peace and give Yuki a happier future, he has to make sacrifices. Everything in his life has led from one trauma to another. He has only suffered and been neglected. His only hope to carry on is his goal to shut down the aristocratic system and hopefully win Yuki's heart. This is it. We have two suffering souls desperately needing Yuki's love in order to feel some sort of happiness in their miserable existences. One is trying to free himself from the manipulative structures of selfish vampires, while the other is a victim slowly turning into the monster he despises. So, in the end, who does Yuki choose? ¿Por qué no las dos? You gotta be kidding me. Despite having to choose between two suffering souls, Yuki actually didn't have to choose. It was mostly Kaname that made the decisions for her while realizing she still had feelings for Zero. You can tell Kaname loves Yuki and is extremely protective of her, to the point where he selfishly wanted to lock Yuki up forever so no one else can have her, but he knew that would only make her sad. Hell, everything he did, from his mysterious travels to him sacrificing his heart to strengthen the hunter's weapons, was all because he knew she wasn't fully in love with him. The same can be said in Zero's case, since Yuki felt she couldn't fully love him either. So she basically didn't have to choose which guy to be with. Kaname did what he set out to do, slept with Yuki while he still could, which she was totally cool with, and falls into a 1,000-year slumber while allowing Zero to take care of Yuki. Oh, by the way, she has a kid with each of them. Kaname got to her first, so she had his daughter named Ai Kuran, and she then had Zero's son named Ren Kiryu. I am not making this up. So to give a giant middle finger to the shipping war, she at least got to bang both of our male leads. And this is why people say Twilight is better. When you get right down to it, just who was Yuki Kuran? She was a sheltered child that needed to be hidden from the corrupt vampire society, only to be used as a plot outlet for our male leads. Without Zero and Kaname, there is nothing interesting about this girl. Even if you argue she was a stubborn girl who fought for her stepfather's dream to one day create a golden future where humans and vampires can coexist, she was mostly put into the story to further Zero and Kaname's plot. She is made for them, not for herself. She has no strong characteristics that make her an independent being, as she just stands there and listens to both Kaname and Zero suffer, to which she really didn't help either of them in the end. So after this long speech, would I recommend Vampire Knight? Perhaps if you wanted to see Kaname and Zero's story from beginning to end, you at least have something. But other than that, there really is nothing more to this bland story. The story drags on to the point where people stopped caring, the side characters are forgettable, and our main lead is just a tool. I'd say there are better titles out there for you to watch. If you want a vampire story, check out Hellsing or even Dance of the Vampire Bund. If you want a good love triangle story with a strong lead, go watch the Ouran High School Host Club. Vampire Knight, on the other hand, is something you can definitely pass, and know you're not missing anything important. I mean, uniforms they wear look nice if you ever want to cosplay them like I did. What? Uniforms are awesome! Very chic and stylish, look at them! Overall, there are better titles out there, but I know I can't stop you from watching this. You can watch the entire series on Hulu in dubbed and subbed, and you can pick up your DVDs through Viz Media and madman.com.au. I'd suggest watching the series before considering a purchase though. If you're into weak melodramas with pretty vampires, then I guess check out Vampire Knight. But believe me when I say, there are better titles out there. Want to support the production? Check out our brand new store on Store Envy. For a small price, you can have a one-of-a-kind poster made by yours truly. If you can only give a small amount to help us out, check out our Patreon page. Any amount you wish to give us goes towards our production needs, so anything you can give us helps us a lot. To keep up with the latest in Anime America stuff, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even Tumblr. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe to Anime America for more awesome reviews and top 10 lists. If you're interested in anything of pop culture, be sure to subscribe to Pop Spectrum. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned to Anime America.